Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers, a controversial show on tap today. Andy's got the rundown.
Sam, from suits concerning public employees to investigations of campaign spending. Those are just a couple of the topics we're going to cover with Secretary of State Dean Heller. And then we talked to Scott MacKenzie from the State of Nevada Employees Association. Did you know as local governments and state governments privatize, local jobs could go offshore, like to India? Sam?
And coming up on the Power Pundit panel today, Ray Bacon, Ray Hagar, and the real Alfredo Alonso. It's all coming up next on the all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by Charter Communication.
The Abowed family has an appetite for dialogue. Agree or disagree, have the conversation. All opinions are welcome. Since 1977, Adele's.
Catch a straight, dine at 8. Lucky you. Lucky you. Dance till 1. Have some fun. Lucky you. Lucky you. Taste the shrimp. Have a sip. Try the pool. Play it cool. At the Sienna Hotel Spa Casino. Lucky you.
In business, the key to success is not the quantity of your clients, it's the quality of your clients. Almost all companies will tell you they want more sales, but what they really need are quality customers who pay their bills on time. With Employer Link's client vendor screening program, we provide comprehensive reports regarding the financial performance of your corporate prospects, customers, and vendors. Build your business with great clients and vendors. Call Employer Links today at 883-3733.
If you own a business and want to maximize your company's potential, join the Retail Association of Nevada. Our membership benefits include the Nevada Retail Network Self-Insured Group, providing workers' compensation coverage that can lower your rates. That savings can go directly to your bottom line. We are an effective pro-business organization that lobbies on behalf of our business members. The Retail Association of Nevada, protecting Nevada businesses for 35 years. Call 882-1700 to see what we can do for your organization.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad, political analyst Ande Engleman on No Holds Barred Political Forum. Now, from the News 4 Broadcast Center, here's Sam Shad.
And on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined by the Secretary of State, Dean Heller. Always a pleasure to have you here, Dean.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you so much for being here. I have to disclose that I once worked for 1998 for Dean Heller, so that's done. Okay, I want to start.
You, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, stop it.
No,
won't
softball.
help.
Yeah, softball.
Right. It won't help. I want to start with the court case.
Okay.
Okay, you are...
Which one, I guess, is the question to
the
ask.
court case having to do with public employees. You're filing this week with Brian Sandoval, the
Correct.
Attorney General, on
Correct.
your behalf, is filing this week. What is it you hope to accomplish?
Well, first of all, I raised the questions, and now I'm looking for some clarification. I think Sandoval's done a very good job of actually going after a very sensitive issue, one that former AGs and, frankly, legislative
You need to briefly
counsel...
explain this just for somebody that doesn't.
Well, the issue is, and the Constitution, I believe, is very clear as to whether or not public employees, especially those serving in the executive branch, can also serve in the legislative branch. Frankly, I think it's prohibitive, and I think the Constitution is very clear on that.
Do you think it also applies to school teachers and local government employees?
Well, let's take, for example, Mark James is just retiring now off the county commission. Who's appointing him? It isn't their own board or isn't the people in that district. It's Governor Kenny Gwinn. So clearly there's some connection between the executive branch and local governments that I don't think can be overlooked. And this is why I've asked Sandoval to move forward and go to the courts on this.
And so that should be filed this week sometime.
Hopefully, yeah.
All right. Now, also, someone representing the American Independent Party has filed to have the court immediately take public employees out of office, saying they're not following the law.
Right.
But in fact, the American Independent Party hasn't been following the disclosure laws. Isn't that correct?
That is an accurate statement.
And what are you going to do? I mean, I'm tired of these people just not following the law and nothing ever happens to them.
Well, we have sent 15 files, 15 independent American Party candidate files over to the Attorney General's office for prosecution. Each one of them, I believe, are somewhere in the area of $10,000 to $15,000 apiece for non-disclosure. So it's in the hands of the Attorney General's office right now, but you're accurate, Andy, in saying that they haven't been following the disclosure laws.
We seem to have an awful lot of laws concerning these kind of areas where the laws have no teeth. We have laws, but they have no teeth.
Well, a $10,000 to $15,000 fine is quite a bit of teeth. In fact, if you
what
talk
if they
to,
refuse to pay it?
I mean, I had Chris Hansen in my office, and he says right now between my office and the Ethics Commission, the ethics violations that he has with him and his family, it's about $250,000 right now. So that's pretty good teeth, if you ask me.
But they're just going to refuse to pay it.
Well, then that's up to the courts to decide. In other words, it's outside of my hands. Once I send the files and the reports over to the Attorney General's office, it's their responsibility to prosecute and the courts to determine what the outcome will be.
All right. You're also investigating a Las Vegas assemblyman who may have mishandled some of his campaign funds. Didn't you in the last session ask to have the right to go in and audit these campaign funds?
Yes, I have, not just last session, but prior sessions before that, thinking that what's the point of sending your disclosure forms to my office if nobody can take a look at them? And basically they sit in files until I get a complaint. Even if somebody calls me on the phone and says, hey, in this case, this assemblyman or this councilman or whatever the case may be, this candidate for the executive branch didn't file correct or use some of the money for personal funds. There isn't anything I can do about it until I get a letter in writing. I believe we should have a system in place that when these financial reports are brought over to the Secretary of State's office, we can hire a CPA firm or have an in-house CPA that can take a look and audit these forms.
Okay, voting machines and county clerks.
Yes.
Seems to be a little bit of a fight going on.
Well, I'm winning that fight if there is a fight. And frankly, I think everybody's coming around. We did have some disagreements, and unfortunately they were aired publicly, and for that I'm disappointed. But the key, I'm keeping my eye on the ball, and the issue is, can Nevada have the most accurate, the most valid election in the country? And I believe that's the direction I'm going.
One question that's been raised is that we accept a level of inaccuracy in voting. But in banking, there is no level of inaccuracy. I mean, your money's in the bank, it's not tampered with, to the penny. Why can't we do this with the election process?
Well, we should be able to, and frankly, that's the argument I've had all along, and that's why I want the paper trail. That's why I want the paper ballot for the public themselves to see when they cast their vote. And the reason that this portion of the political class that are called election officials, in my opinion, don't want this paper trail is because they know that nothing gets scrutinized more in this process we call democracy than the election process. And if there is a void of the ability to answer questions, and I can give you a couple examples if we have time, but to suffice, the less answers there are out there, then the less responsibility they have to take. And to me, I think that's wrong. I think we have a responsibility to make sure every single one of these votes are counted, and if they're not counted or there is a problem, we should know why that problem occurred.
And again, somebody should be held accountable. I have one last quick thing for you. We've seen in the national campaigns now, President Bush, John Kerry, and anybody else who's running nationally has to say, I approved this ad. With some of the disgusting races that we saw 2 years ago, and in previous campaigns in this state, I think it would be a wonderful idea to have candidates in Nevada have to say that they approved some of these diabolical ads, and maybe that would clean things up a bit.
Sam, you wouldn't have an argument from me. I would absolutely agree.
Well, how would we go about that?
I'd have to take a look at that, see what kind of laws need to be changed, but certainly starting from my office would be the right place for that to begin, and go back to the office and take a look at that and say, hey, can we mirror some of these changes and some of these reforms that occurred on the federal level?
And you would take it to the legislature, right?
Correct, correct.
Well, please consider the request having begun here, and we'd like to find out how it goes. Okay, because I approve that statement of yours. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, after this time out.
Atlantis is cooking up a party. It's every diner's paradise. Toucan Charlie's Buffet and Grill, voted Reno's best buffet by locals year after year. Experience the Mongolian barbecue, new Asian station, and sumptuous exhibition stations filled with fresh entrees, salads, and desserts. Try the Friday night seafood buffet and Sunday champagne brunch.
Atlantic.
Would you like to savor a Trento pork chop? Or maybe pasta rags with grilled chicken? Hugo's Tuscan Grill at D'Andrea is a celebration of color, flavor, and freshness. Each dish is created from natural, wholesome foods that is delicious and nutritious. Hugo's is a comfortable restaurant with breathtaking city views. If you enjoy great food and good company, visit us here at Hugo's. It's the best that dining can be. 2900 South D'Andrea Parkway in Sparks.
Allegra is Northern Nevada's #1 offset printing and digital copying facility.
From disc to destination, Allegra utilizes tomorrow's technology today. We specialize in booklets, catalogs, manuals, newsletters, stationery, and envelopes.
Xerox, Docutech, 4-color printing with Heidelberg Speedmaster, desktop publishing and design, graphic services, pickup and delivery.
If you need printing, Allegra can do it. From disc to destination.
To experience the royal cuisine of India, you need some serious magic or simply transport yourself to India Garden, right here in Reno, where you'll discover Indian specialties refined over centuries. Sikh kebab, tandoori dishes cooked in our own tandoor oven, biryani specialties, curries, fresh-baked Indian bread, over a dozen vegetarian dishes, even dishes rare to India like dosa, South Indian-style crepes. India Garden off South Virginia near Sports West. We are India.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad and Ande Engleman.
And we're joined by Scott MacKenzie, who's Executive Director of the State of Nevada Employees Association, SNEA. Welcome to the program. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Todd. Your first visit. I hope you'll be back again. Just to clarify for everybody, the State of Nevada Employees Association is not a union such as you have at the local level or that the teachers union is.
Well,
right?
it is a union, but we don't have collective bargaining rights. We still have the right under the First Amendment and under state law to advocate on behalf of our members. So we do consider ourselves a union, but we don't have collective bargaining rights.
Okay. One of the issues that I am concerned about that I saw raised by you actually in a story in one of the newspapers in Las Vegas has to do with as we privatize at the local government level, at the state government level, these jobs could conceivably be moved offshore, not even kept in Nevada, not even kept in this country, but our tax dollars could be going to India.
Well, I think that is definitely a concern. Apparently it's happening in other states. We have to, I guess, watchdog what's happening with folks that come for us with contracts. We certainly have to make sure that people that work directly for the state, that those jobs aren't outsourced, but we also have to take a look at the people that are bidding for contracts in the state, because we'd like to keep those jobs here because our economy is fragile, and those jobs going overseas would affect the multiplier within our community.
What kind of jobs?
Well, apparently a lot of the jobs that are being outsourced are jobs that deal with phone calls, for example, banks. A lot of the calls you get nowadays from a bank are from people in India. So I'm not sure exactly how that would equate into the state jobs, but...
Well, I think we were told by one of our pundits before the show that actually this happens a lot as far as welfare is concerned. Sam, the company that runs a lot of the welfare things in other states, actually, which is owned by Ross Perot, actually does most of their business out of India.
Well, I'm going to play the devil's advocate
here.
Okay,
that's fine. You're wrong, but you go ahead.
Raise the issue and say that in a world that is now interconnected, if there are more efficient ways to do things, shouldn't we be taking advantage of those and finding other ways for our workforce to be productive in this country? I mean, if we're going to compete with the rest of the world, and we are going to have to compete with the rest of the world, then unless we start putting huge tariffs on other countries, then we're going to continue to see some kind of outsourcing going along.
You want to take this or shall I?
Well, I think we need to analyze that. I think we need to look at what the benefits, the upside is and what the downside is. What is the effect on the multiplier in the community? How does that affect our tax base? If we have a $30,000 job that's in Nevada and we send it overseas and so the company...
And lay off the guy that's...
Lay off the guy. Well, now we've lost $30,000 in multiplier effect within the state, which will eventually affect the tax base.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying that just like the gaming industry in Nevada is dealing with Indian gaming...
That's private sector, Sam. We're talking public.
I understand. I understand, but government is not an island unto itself, and people constantly are asking for government to be as efficient as possible and to be as cost-effective as possible, and to be as small as possible. And so if there are ways to do things more efficiently, we should at least take a look at them. And I don't disagree with you. If it's going to cost us more money than we're saving by sending something somewhere else, whether it be to the next state or to another country. But I think we cannot think of the United States anymore as a sole object. We're way too interconnected. Global corporations have taken that to the fore.
Let's talk about that a second. I mean, locally within the state, we've done some privatization of state jobs. There hasn't been a lot of success. The state is really a lean machine, and if you look at what the state wages and benefits of the state classified employees are, they're 26% behind city, county, and private sector.
But higher than private sector. They're higher than private sector.
Well, city and county sector, they're definitely 26% lower and 30% lower in benefits. So how are you going to privatize that? So far, the attempts, Ely Medical was privatized, that reverted back. You have the women's prison in Southern Nevada, that's reverting back at the end of the year.
I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm not advocating anybody to lose their jobs or anything to be outsourced anywhere. I'd like to see Nevada continue to grow and boom and be a very healthy, successful place with high wages for everyone. And I'm just saying that there's a reality that we're in a global economy
and
these
that's
days.
fine at the corporate level, but I think when it comes to tax dollars, those tax dollars ought to be staying in Nevada where they're spent.
So you would advocate spending more money for goods or services to stay in the Silver State rather than for us to get the economy of scale?
Yes, because I think the ripple effect costs us more. I think people being laid off and the fact that they're not buying, there's a ripple effect
but would you at least,
trickle down
would you at least
negatively.
advocate people being in favor of looking at this?
What I would advocate is that when we review these contracts for bids, that we put in a preference for Nevada companies, and then if they beat the bid, they beat the bid, okay, and then it goes out of state. But I would certainly put a Nevada preference in these bid contracts.
I would just say that we shouldn't have a short-sighted view of that. It's a very complex issue.
Thank you for coming on our show and letting Andy and I argue.
I think that it's a far more complicated issue than just looking at the immediate cost savings. Okay, you're paying $5,000 to $30,000.
Let him finish.
And so the ripple effect in the economy, the multiplier of the dollar, will affect business and it will affect the state revenue. So we have to measure that to see, is it worth it? And yeah, we're in a global economy, but that doesn't mean we just have to jump in with both feet and be blind as to what could happen.
I totally agree with you. All I'm saying is that I think that we should look at it and not just enclose ourselves and say, we're in Nevada, we've got to keep everything in Nevada, and we shouldn't look at any other way of doing business, because otherwise that's a recipe, I think, for disaster.
And I think the market will look at it, naturally. I mean, it will migrate to try to find wherever they can do best. So I think
we'd like to have you come back on the show, and we'll give you more airtime.
Right, definitely.
Thanks so much for being here. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers with the Pundits after this.
In business, the key to success is not the quantity of your clients, it's the quality of your clients. Almost all companies will tell you they want more sales, but what they really need are quality customers who pay their bills on time. With Employer Link's client and vendor screening program, we provide comprehensive reports regarding the financial performance of your corporate prospects, customers, and vendors. Build your business with great clients and vendors. Call Employer Links today at 883-3733.
The Abowd family has an appetite for dialogue. Agree or disagree, have the conversation. All opinions are welcome. Since 1977, Adele's.
Your home is an expression of all things comforting and familiar. For custom storage, you can count on California Closets to provide quality, value, and design integrity. The process is easy, combining your personal style with our organizing expertise. We care about what matters most to you, making your home functional and beautiful. California Closets, simplifying home and life since 1978. Call today for your complimentary design consultation.
Join us for the uncorking of the 3rd Reno Tahoe Wine, Food, and Jazz Festival, April 30th through May 2nd at the Reno Hilton. Sample wines, cooking demonstrations, live jazz, and purchase fine art at festival days. Try dishes from the Reno Hilton's finest restaurants and taste wines from over a dozen wineries at the Grand Tasting. And at the exclusive Winemakers Reception and Art Auction, meet winemakers from Cakebread Cellars, Sequoia Grove, Benziger, and others. A fine wine festival that won't need to age to perfection. April 30th through May 2nd, only at the Reno Hilton.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad and Ande Engleman.
And we are back on Newsmakers, and we've got a great pundit panel as always today. Ray Bacon is here. He's the Executive Director of the Nevada Manufacturers Association. Ray Hagar,
Sam,
extreme reporter here for the Reno Gazette-Journal, and the real Alfredo Alonso. Scott Craigie couldn't make it. Pleasure to have you here. Okay.
No, we wanted Alfredo here.
I know. I'm just teasing. Wanted to talk about a story that broke today about contributions to the Supreme Court justices and where those were coming from.
Yes, it's pretty amazing. It was broken in the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We always give credit. And one of the companies that's in the top 10 as far as contributions to Supreme Court justices was Lionel, Sawyer, and Collins. Now, they didn't even come close to Mandalay Bay, which gave something like over $120,000 to Supreme Court candidates. I think they only gave a paltry $22,000, I think that was it, from Lionel, Sawyer, and Collins to Supreme Court justices.
Do you have a problem, Ande, with businesses contributing to very expensive Supreme Court justice races?
I wouldn't have a problem if they didn't have cases in front of the Supreme Court, but most certainly a law firm does, and certainly a lot of the gaming companies do, although not all of them. Actually, the Progressive Leadership Alliance network has released this study, and what they're advocating is that there be a $50 charge to each attorney as they register each year, and this would go into a fund that would fund Supreme Court races so they wouldn't have to ask for campaign contributions.
Okay.
Alfredo, you used to work in the Secretary of State's office. Is this feasible?
I think it's kind of silly. I mean, I think, in our system, as long as you have Supreme Court justices and other judges that run for office, they're going to need to get their message out. The only way to do that is to solicit campaigns. So unless you change the system, I don't see how anybody can be put in the spotlight and said, you're giving more than someone else, so this means something. I think these people are independent, and they clearly have the press to bring out any issues that might be suspect. So I think it's a non-issue.
Press.
So is that a support for the Missouri plan then?
I have no problem with the Missouri plan.
I don't like the Missouri plan.
When major law firms contribute so much to the Supreme Court, I think it taints any decision by the Supreme Court. And I think that things fundamentally need to be changed about this.
Does anybody have an example of where a campaign contribution has resulted in a Supreme Court decision?
And that's my point. You won't find one.
Well, just wait. We'll have a new set of judges, and let's see what their decisions are.
But again, we've been going through this system for many, many years. And again, if someone can point to one, I'd love to hear about it.
It's the public perception. It's public perception that major law firms would somehow be in cahoots with the Supreme Court justices.
But they're not the only ones contributing. I mean, anybody can contribute to a Supreme Court race. They have lots of donations that are not the large ones, and that applies in practically every elected race in the state.
Well, the thing is, the court is supposed to be on a different level than all other candidates. They are supposed to be a cut above and sit a little bit higher.
But Andy, they have not demonstrated that any time recently.
Well, and that's true. I mean, the question is, we don't really know how much the Nevada State Education Association contributed to those campaigns before they came out with the 2/3 majority, or the 2/3 ruling overturning our constitutional provision. So, until we can see a closer nexus, you're right, we have to see a nexus, a definite thing where you say, okay, these people contributed $50,000 to your campaign, and this is the ruling you came out with, which we think is really strange.
Okay, all right, let's move on to the next topic here. Ray, you've been dealing with the subject of teachers not teaching correctly or appropriately in Nevada. Do you find that to be an accurate portrayal?
No, because Ray didn't do the story.
No, I know. But reading about it. And
perhaps it's accurate in some cases, but also I have to stick up for the majority of teachers who work very hard with little funding to educate our children in this state. What concerns me, maybe I'm getting a little bit off the subject, but it's a key thing in the news now. The salaries given to our college basketball coach here at the University of Nevada, when you add up his salary, the football coach's salary, and the new athletic director's salary, we're talking over $1 million a year. And what really disturbs me about this is that our basketball team that has everybody in this community in such a euphoria, they have one of the worst graduation rates of any team in the Sweet 16. I think that is a statewide embarrassment.
Okay, you guys got about 15 seconds apiece.
Let me add to that. Our our new basketball coach at UNLV starts at $705,000 a year and goes over $800,000. So, you know, our whole higher education system fundamentally looks like they're kind of focused in an area that, you know, it's really not focused on academics.
Alfredo, you get the last 30 seconds.
Let's face it, folks. This town hasn't been this together since I can remember, since I was a kid. I think there's a lot of intangibles that people are forgetting about here. Probably. I think it's wonderful that they're keeping Trent Johnson. I have absolutely no problem paying these people what they're worth to keep them here. It brings a lot of money into the community. A lot of money was made in the community with respect to businesses selling their wares during this time as well. And as far as their graduation rate, that's something if that is the case, obviously I'm all for working on that. But this is a good thing.
Okay, None of this money ever goes into improving education.
We gotta go. We'll be right back. It's America's largest historical district, and it's fun for the entire family. Virginia City is where the West comes alive every day, from train rides to gunslingers. Your gang can explore mines and interesting museums, visit historic saloons, and do some great shopping. Virginia City is the ultimate in family entertainment, and it's very affordable. Come up and stay overnight in our hotels, motels, and RV park. Virginia City, the Wild West at its best.
I tell you, John, this industry has really changed.
Tell me about it.
You seemed to do pretty well last year. What's your secret?
No secrets. Although I'll tell you something. The smartest thing I did was sign up with Pro Group Management.
Really? They do workers' comp, right?
Yeah, their services are great. And get this, they saved me 30%. I've heard they saved others 50%.
That works for me.
Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
Atlantis is cooking up a party. It's every diner's paradise. Toucan Charlie's Buffet and Grill, voted Reno's best buffet by locals year after year. Experience the Mongolian barbecue, new Asian station, and sumptuous exhibition stations filled with fresh entrees, salads, and desserts. Try the Friday night seafood buffet and Sunday champagne brunch.
Atlantis.
When you sign up for Wells Fargo free checking, you get more than free checking. You get the freedom to bank when and where you want. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by Charter Communication.
And coming up tomorrow,
Lynn Hetrick and Carol Villardo.
See you then.
Thank you for watching.